Welcome to a conversation on public relations and the law. Let's get started. All right. I'd like to start with a couple definitions and terminologies that you should know about. Number one is defamation. Defamation is a legal term, it's law language. It encompasses any false statement or communication that can harm the reputation of a person or a business or any other entity. And basically, it is if you say something that's untrue and that can harm the reputation of somebody, that's what defamation is. And it can be broken down into two parts: slander and libel. So let's talk about each of them. The first one is slander. So if you say something that is untrue, if you say something that is incorrect, that harms somebody's reputation, that is what we call slander. So this is spoken words, it could be gestures, it could be any non-verbal expressions, all of it, anything that's oral, right, or spoken is verbal or non-verbal is considered slander. So if you were to, in a podcast, say something, or in a conversation that is, you say something, or a speech that you deliver and you say something about someone else or another business or another entity, that could be false. And if it's false and it hurts somebody's reputation, that's when it's called slander. And you can get sued for something like that, right? Okay. And then there's libel. Okay, so this is, it's the same thing, but it is written or it's published, right? So any kind of communication that a newspaper picks up, which could be wrong, then it's published, right? If you write something on a blog about somebody and you have it's a popular blog and lots of people read it and it's completely untrue, and it hurts somebody's reputation, that's libel. Okay, so something more permanent is libel. Something that's spoken and oral is slander. So just understand the difference between slander and libel, both a part of form of defamation. Okay, so just some things to know about. And the reason we're talking about this is for public relations professionals, you are often sharing information. So be careful what you share, make sure it's true, that that it's not harming anybody's reputation, because you could get into trouble. And sometimes the celebrities do that, and you can get into trouble as well, right? Because you've got to help them out and you need to know enough to be able to share that information. Okay, so let's move on to an example, right? So this is Johnny Depp, and I don't know if you guys know, but there was a bunch of conversation about this stuff in the last few years. There was a defamation suit that he filed, and he lost, actually. So have a look at what this heading looks like. He is a wife beater, right? This is something that The Sun, which is a European magazine, it published it. It's one of those People magazine kind of magazines, and it was published that Johnny Depp is a wife beater. And so Johnny Depp was mad, right? And he was like, well, hello, you can't do that, right? You can't do that. You can't, you're hurting my reputation. Well, turns out the Sun won, the newspaper won, because they said, well, they didn't lie about this stuff, it was proven that he hurt Amber Heard, right? He hurt her. He used to beat her up. And so, it was substantially true. So even though the article published and it hurt Johnny Depp's reputation, the truth is that it was true. And so that's why he lost his case, right? So it's a case study that most of us can understand quickly, can relate to. And you see the word libel, now you know what that means. It was published, and therefore, and it definitely hurt his reputation, but it was true. and only if it's untrue would you win a case like that. Okay, let's move on to a couple other concepts. I mean, the way I'm going to talk about public relations and the law is really just share some important concepts with you instead of just really going into the more academic law side of things, which you know, if you're more interested in it, I'm sure I can find you more articles to read. But I just wanted to share some very basic information like 101 PR law, right? Okay, so if you're working with a corporation and you're a PR agency, you're a PR person, sorry, working in a corporation, keep in mind that people's privacy is super important. And take permissions before you do anything. Take permissions before you share a photo out. Take permission before you share something about someone in a newsletter, company newsletter. If a media person asks questions about your CEO and where they live, or if they're married or not, how many kids they have, like, well, watch out, like, maybe you're not supposed to share that stuff, right? So learn about that. Learn about what the CEO prefers to do. Ask before you share anything out. Do not share any information that would lead to an employee in your company being offended. All of that matters. Everything matters. Definitely don't share any photos with kids out of employees, right? Because that could get you into some kind of hot soup as well. Okay, moving on to copyright law. So let's talk about different kinds of law. Copyright law is protection of any creative work from unauthorized use, right? So any kind of literary work, any kind of musical work, any kind of theatrical work, any kind of choreography, any kind of sculptural work, any motion pictures, right? Film work, any sound recording, audio work, right? All of that stuff, if it has been created and produced by a person, that is an original work of authorship and can be copyrighted. Okay, copyright doesn't protect ideas just in the way the ideas are expressed. So let me tell you a little bit about what that would look like. So for example, look at this time travel adventure story. Now, the idea of time travel is not new, and it is an unprotected idea, right? But a film like Back to the Future, which is a 1985 production that hopefully some of you have seen, that is eligible for copyright protection in the way it has been expressed, in the way time travel was expressed, the way the character was built, the way the script was written, and other creative elements that was very much part of that Back to the Future film. That idea is copyrighted. What is not copyrighted is the idea of somebody going back in time, jumping timelines. We're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff in many, many different shows from Amazon to Netflix, right? So that kind of time travel idea is not copyright proof, right? That's an unprotected idea. Anybody can come up with time travel adventures. However, something that is very specific in the way it's covered, like that Back to Future kind of film, is certainly something we would say is a protected expression, and that's copyright. Okay, so hopefully you understand what copyright means and what it applies to and what it doesn't apply to. Okay, let's move on to copyright photography and artwork. So many of you are interested in photography. Now that we have these amazing phones, and I just upgraded mine to 15, right? It's my Apple product. And I mean, it's got these 3 cameras, and I can take some amazing photos with this, right? Pretty professional looking. And if you have fancy cameras, SLR, obviously, you can take some fantastic photographs. And let's say you decide to be a freelance photographer, right? You have ownership of your work, right? Unless you plan to give it away, in general, you have ownership of the photos that you take. So when you buy a photo, right? Like for example, for my magazines, and I own 2 different ones. When I buy a photo, I own the ownership to the photo, right? Because I bought that, but only for that one photo that I would buy from Unsplash or one of these Shutterstock. I can download that photo. I can pay $20 for that photo, and that's my photo to keep. But and maybe I've when I bought the photo or downloaded that one photo, one image, it was for my website, and I've told, I've declared that that's what I bought the photo for. But I can't make multiple copies of the photo. I can't print the photo and then, sell it, right? I can't do stuff like that because the person who actually created that photograph, that person owns, retains that ownership of their work. So you can make a decision, and some sites online that sell these photographs will say this is only for one-time use, or you're buying it, you're paying $100 for it, but you can use it as many times as you want, and you can put it in your magazine, which is going to get printed and sent out to 100,000 people. Like, I've bought the rights to the photo for me to do that, right? But if you don't, and if you just get somebody's photo, which is a copyrighted photo, well, you're going to get in trouble if you go ahead and you distribute it anywhere. So that's just something to remember. There are copyright-free photos that you get on sites like Pexel and Canva and Unsplash as well, and those are free. And the photographer has relinquished their ownership, and that's okay. You could use those things as long as you know that you're allowed to do it. There was an incident one time where someone took an amazing photograph of a sports game, someone kicking the ball or whatever, and one very prominent magazine may have seen that photo on social media, downloaded it, and shared it out, and published it in multiple places. And the photographer who took that photo said, "Hold up, that was not okay." And then he sued the publication and actually, made $1 million or more, because they had to pay up that kind of money. So really, it is important to know, if you're a photographer, to retain that ownership of the photo. And if you are a PR person using one of these photos, make sure it is copyright free, or that you pay for the photo before distributing it. Okay, let's talk about copywriting when it comes to freelance writers. Okay, so we're talking about writers retaining ownership of their work. So there was a lot of conversation in 2023 with a lot of strikes in Hollywood about this specific kind of issue. Writers are supposed to retain ownership of their work, just what we saw in the last conversation, right? It's the same thing. You cannot reproduce somebody else's work unless you're paying them for it. So often writers are negotiating. They're saying, okay, here's the work that I was hired to write. Take it, pay me the whole amount. I'm done. Or they would say, here's what I've been asked to write. You can take it. You can use it one time, but then if you want to use it another time, you need to come back to me and you got to pay me more, and then you can use it another time as well, right? So there is negotiation around it, and there was a lot of conversation in 2023 to figure out, iron out how some of these rules would work. Now, why do you need to know about that? Well, if you're a PR person, you need to be responsible to ensure that you're compliant, that you're following the rules, that you negotiated, you have it in writing, what you can and cannot do. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, and that is issues with copyright material on the internet. Now, you cannot scan an entire book online without somebody's permission, right? That's important, because if you do, then that is copyright infringement. And you see it in most of these books. They have a little C with a circle, and that's what that copyright symbol is. Now, anytime you post something like that, books, materials, YouTube videos, right? Like you're watching a video, you're actually recording it, and then you upload it on your YouTube channel, right? That's not okay, right? So because that's copyright infringement. So it's just something to know. Not that YouTube is going to get in trouble, but they will have to take down that video, right? And because it's anytime you do that, like for example, I just posted something recently on my YouTube channel, and it was my daughter's performance, and she was performing on a Star Wars theme, and there was that Star Wars music playing. And when I was just recording her video because she was performing on ice, and I was following her around, and I just took that video, not even thinking that there is a music component here, which is a Star Wars music component, which YouTube's going to have problem with if I upload it. But I did upload it, but it was a private video, and it was just for me, and it was fine, right? It was just for my family and my parents to see, and that was it. But something to keep in mind, that something like that could happen, and YouTube basically just flagged it and said, "Oh, this is copyright infringement here." And I was just thinking, wait, what? Oh, wait, it's the Starbucks, it's the Star Wars um, music that is playing in the background, and that's what they have a problem with. So, it's important, and it's good that we have these kinds of flagging. And as PR people, we just have to be a little bit careful of how we share information. All right, let's now talk about trademark law. So copyright is a little bit different from trademark, right? So trademark is actually a word or a symbol or a slogan that defines the brand, right? So for Subway, uh, that tagline, "Eat fresh," and the way Subway is written with the arrows, that is their trademark. Same with Nike and the swoosh that says "Just do it," or the Oscars, the way it is written with the Oscar little sculpture right next to it, or the way Chanel is written, or the way Amazon Kindle is written with like the arrow for Amazon, or how Coca-Cola is written, their font is definitely a trademark. And so when you see something like that, you immediately recognize it, right? And that's what defines your brand, and that's what a trademark is. So you can actually register your symbol, your logo with Washington, D.C. There is actually a organization that does that, and it costs like $400-500. And you can protect your brand, the way it's written and all of it, and that's what a trademark is. Okay, so sports logos that you may be familiar with are also registered trademarks. And this is really important for all sports brands to have their trademarks, because they're selling a lot of merch, and merch is a big business. And you don't want somebody else to use your logo and create clothing and sell it, because we know how expensive some of those jerseys are. If you go out there to buy them, right, jerseys or hats or whatever else, right? So these guys are making a lot of money selling the stuff, and so you want to be paying very close attention to who's selling it, and if they are, it looks like, it feels like a real symbol, a real trademark logo, and somebody else is just selling it without any permission from the brand, obviously it is an infringement that you should be knowing about. So be careful as PR people in terms of, who, whether you have trademarks or not, how are you making use of them? And if you don't have a logo that has been trademarked, trademark it. People have got into trouble, right? If there's a copycat kind of brand, or promotion that creates some kind of confusion in the mind of the consumers, you can definitely get in trouble. There's litigation, you can get sued. And there have been lots of these kinds of infringements in the past. You could see 3M, which we're all familiar with. This was 3N, which is a copycat, and obviously there was a lawsuit and you know who won, right? 3M won. Same with some of these others that I'm seeing. I'm not making it up, but I did find them online. Hopefully they're true. But like, look at Louis Vuitton and Louis Vuitton Duck. And that place looks a little bit like McDonald's if you really like look closely. And then, look at what they're selling. And they already have all those, Louis Vuitton looking, little images, right? And so you know that it's not, but they can't be using it, right? So that's the idea that, if you have a business, try not to use something that already is existing, because you can get in trouble. Like if you get really popular and famous and stuff, like your product gets really kind of like popular, then you're definitely going to get in trouble, because these guys would know, and they come out with their big guns and like you're in trouble, right? Okay. You can see some more of that. American Eagle. Pantaloon is actually pretty big, very big organization out of India, and there was a verdict where American Eagle basically sued them. Look at Frappuccino and Fredduccino, and yeah, they kind of look very similar, but don't do that. I mean, come up with your own. Okay, here's another interesting one, and this is misappropriation of personality. If you are as old as me or older, you would probably know of Johnny Carson, and there, whenever he had a show, it was always like, and here's Johnny, there was like that kind of thing that followed, and then he walked onto stage. And that's very much when you thought of Johnny, that's exactly what you thought of, like the way that would he'd be announced, and things like that. And that right of publicity really kind of gave the right to him to cash in on that fame. And there was a portable toilet company, and they did the same thing. Here's Johnny, right? And well, he didn't want his personality to be connected to a toilet company, and there was a lawsuit based on that. So this kind of stuff does happen, and just something to pay attention to. We don't have to copy. I mean, in the world of Chat GPT, we tend to be picking up things that we shouldn't, right? And we will know better. But if you're creative and you just do your research, and make sure that that you're careful in terms of how you share information or create it. Okay, moving on to regulations by government agencies. So government agencies have been regulating commercial speech for many, many years now. For example, for the longest time, specific kind of ads were not even allowed on TV, right? So cigarette advertising was banned, is still banned. And that's something that the government can do to regulate what should be shared, what shouldn't be shared. And so that's something that you must know, that there might be certain brands, a certain kind of product categories that we really they cannot be advertised, they cannot be promoted, PR or advertising like this. It's just, you can't do anything because it's regulated by the government. Okay, so these are the different agencies, and we should talk about each of these agencies. Federal Trade Commission, Securities and Exchange Commission, Federal Communication Commission, Food and Drug Administration, and EEOC. And so let's quickly talk about each of these so you get a feel for it. And again, we're talking about this stuff because PR professionals should be very well informed of what the rules and regulations are on air, off air. We just need to know this stuff because you're in the business of sharing information, of communication, and of promotion. So let's quickly talk about that. The first one here is the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission. So let's say it's obviously directly connected with advertising, but it could also be a news release where you're sharing information. Let's say in your product news release or on your social media, you say, well, let's say you're representing Kellogg's cereal, right? And you say, well, if you eat this cereal, then your kids are going to be a lot more attentive, actually more attentive by 20%. You haven't really backed it by anything. There is no real proof of that. You just decided to say that because, maybe it has some caffeine in it. I don't know. I'm just making it up, right? But you can't say that because there's no real research backing it up. And even if there were, you have to be a little bit careful of how you would say something like that and not mislead people, right? So if you do, the Federal Trade Commission organization is going to come right there and say, pull it off air right now. Here's the fine, right? So they're in charge of making sure that people just don't just say things that are misleading and confusing to the public. The next one is the Securities and Exchange Commission. And these are the guys who kind of make sure that there is no insider trading, right? And if there's anything that needs to be disclosed and that's public information, it should be disclosed. Don't keep it private because it's bad news, right? You can't do stuff like that. So if you do that, then there could be lawsuits against your company. And so if you are in public relations role in a financial organization, right, that is on Wall Street, you have to make sure that your reporting is accurate, that you're not hiding information. If there is any chance that your corporation is going to be merged with another organization, well, and if you have to share that information, share it when it's actually true, not when it's hypothetically going to happen, because people trade on Wall Street based on some of this information that is being disclosed, and if that information is false, they can lose like billions of dollars. So just something to pay attention to. If there is bad news, please share the bad news when it's time to share the bad news. You hold on to that information. Some people know about it, some people don't know about it, then they share information between each other, and then that's what insider trading is. And they make certain decisions and make a bunch of money, and the rest of them don't because they didn't have the information, which they should have had at the same time. Everyone should have got the same information at the same time. So that's the kind of stuff that's important. And you got to, as a PR professional working in the finance field, those are the kinds of things you have to pay attention to. When you don't, SEC will come hard on you, right? And, my husband works in finance, and we've seen the story play over and over again because he talks about it all the time, about how, information was leaked, decisions were made based on that information. Some rumors were sent out and may have been untrue, or it was not publicly disclosed, just sent to a few people, and people made decisions on it, good decisions or very bad decisions, and SEC is looking and saying, hey, what the heck, like, stop it, that's not right, that's not right. And a lot of fines are being imposed on that kind of thing, and you get in real trouble, right? When they grill you, it's not fun to be in that situation at all. And so just something to pay attention to if you are in financial PR. Okay, so that's the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's one of the arms that are regulating things. The next one here is FCC, Federal Communication Commission. And these guys, they oversee internet policies, right? So if there's anything weird that's happening on TV, which is inappropriate, or doesn't have a good source and seems weird and fake, these are the guys who follow up with that stuff. So you would know this particular one if you are a Super Bowl fan and you watched something in 2004. We had a wardrobe malfunction, and it was shown live on TV to 100 million viewers. We don't know if it was planned or it was just something that went wrong, but it was not fun, and it did wonders to one person's career, and it really screwed up the other person's career. You can look it up, and you can research and learn more about it. And this is all celebrity stuff, so I have no doubt that you'll look it up. But the costume reveal that went wrong. Well, FCC said, I don't care if you planned it or it happened by mistake, but this is a problem. Here's the fine, and you're in trouble, right? So that's their job. You know, there were little kids watching. They had to be very careful, and what they did was inappropriate. Okay, the next one is FDA. All right, so FDA is Food and Drug Administration, and this is more the healthcare side of it. So you see an ad of a drug or a promotion of a drug, and if you are not careful of how you present that information, well, that's problematic because people are they're desperate. They're looking for information. They're looking for solutions that can help them. And if they buy a product or they tell the doctor about a drug because of what they read or what they saw on TV based on the ad or promotion that was there, and it was false, like that's problematic, right? So that's why you always see at the end of any commercial that deals with healthcare, there is this person, there's a voice that's speaking really fast about like what the drug will do and not do and will not help these people or side effects and all of that, right? Because they're almost required to do something like that. I don't know how effective it is. When they speak that fast, you don't even hear it anyway. But there are guidelines for video and audio and print news releases on anything that is connected with health, and the Food and Drug Administration is the one that oversees if people are screwing things up. Okay, the next one is EEA, and this is basically equal opportunity, and we saw a lot of it over the last few years, and rightfully so. I mean, people should not be discriminated, and that's what this particular organization oversees. Okay, let's move on to corporate speech, right? So the governments also regulate corporate speech. So if I am Samsung, and if I talk about how Samsung, again, totally making it up, cure cancer, well, that's misleading, right? And so something like that, a little more intellectual, would be regulated by the government, right? So any kind of press releases, brochures, promotional materials, ads that are that intended to sell products and intended to sell a service, whatever information they are sharing out, that constitutes commercial speech or corporate speech. And the government will be taking a closer look at something that seems a little amiss. Okay. Switching gears from government to corporations, right? So the corporations are also monitoring employee speech, right? So in very large companies that have very secure information, any company that deals with money, lots of financial stuff, or it's very public, they're monitoring what people are writing in their emails and what they're sharing on their instant messaging from their computer. So let's say you're at work, but you're accessing your Gmail, they have the right to check that too. If the company gave you a phone, they can monitor all your phone conversations. And they're kind of allowed to do that. You are not to be honestly looking at Gmail on your work computer or pornography or all of that stuff, right? Don't look at anything personal in any form on your work computer, on your work phone that has been given to you by the corporation, because they have the right to monitor that information. So just something to know. Okay, and then finally, we talk about liabilities for sponsored events. So PR folks have to really work hard to protect their organization from any kind of liability, from any kind of lawsuit when they put big events together. Okay, so if you plan your event well, there's less chance of being sued because everything has been thought through before as you plan it. But definitely take liability insurance, because without that, comprehensive insurance, right? If I rent a room for any event, I'm required to take insurance. And if I'm an individual or if I'm a corporation, for both, I need to protect myself and protect against any damages. And sometimes it's $1 million or $2 million worth of comprehensive coverage that you need to take. And it might cost, between $200 and $400, but but it's worth it, right? You need to do that so that you don't get into trouble for a large or a small event that you are organizing on behalf of the organization. Okay, so in this particular conversation, we've talked about public relations and the law, and hopefully you have a better understanding of some of these big terms like defamation and libel and slander and liability insurance and copyright and trademark and all of these kinds of things. Hopefully that information will help you way beyond this class and this video. Thank you.